This is a reading of Death at Bishop's Keep by Robin Page, the first in the Victorian Mystery series. I will be reading each chapter per each video, and while English isn't my first language, I will do my very best to pronounce the names just as I can. There will likely be some moments in this series where some local text, as in people speaking with accents, are speaking in the story. And I will do my best to read it as it is in the book, even though that might not be the correct accent. Chapter 1. I am in just the mood for a ghostly tale, a scene of mystery, a startling revelation, and where shall I look for an obliging magician to gratify me? Here. Louisa May Alcott, The Fate of the Forests. Qa'Rajh glanced warily over her shoulder. The late summer night was black as the pit and stormy, lighted by intermittent blue-white glare of lightning flashes. The wind skittered like a mad thing through Manhattan's nearly empty streets, twisting Kate's sensible skirt around her ankles and flapping the chestnut window sign. It was precisely the sort of wild night on which Felix Farmore had kidnapped Pearl St. John in Kate's second story, Missing Pearl, or the Lost Heiress. And it was in just such a shadowy street that Felix had apprehended Pearl and borne her off to her fate. But the figure that Kate saw behind the passing two-horse omnibus was nothing like the fictitious Farmore. It was quite real, and familiar too, for she had seen it yesterday as well. She quickened her pace, lifting her skirt to avoid a pile of horse droppings, and ducking behind a brewery wagon piled with wooden kegs. He, for Kate was quite certain that it was a man, stout and bowl-hatted, had followed her yesterday, and this evening he had followed her ever since she had left the Fifth Avenue offices of Frank Leslie Publishing House, where she had finally procured payment for Missing Pearl. She fisted her gloved hands in the pockets of her trim-fitting jacket and drew her brows together, her apprehension mixed with a more than a little annoyance. In point of fact, Kate would not have been abroad on the streets on a Tuesday evening, a good hour after the closing of the shops, if Mr. Bothwell Coxford, our haughty self-important assistant editor of Frank Leslie's popular monthly, had not kept her waiting for the greater part of the afternoon. It was only as the electric lamps were being lighted that a clerk had brought her bank draft for $225, an amount that would permit her to pay Miss Murchison the rent and see her comfortably situated until she had finished her next serial story, which she had tentatively titled Amber's Amulet or the Conspiracy of Death. The money was worth walking a total of 40 blocks to fetch, even if the wild night threatened with rain. Kate gave another furtive glance over her shoulder and quickened her step. The shadow had gained ground and was closing fast. Most women would have been frightened to death in such circumstance, but Kate, independent and self-sufficient, was not given to fright. She stepped decisively around the corner and into a pale halo that encircled the street lamp in front of the 9th Street police station. The station's stone staircase descended solidly to the pavement, and a reassuring light glowed the frosted glass door. It was here that her uncle, Sean O'Malley, served as detective sergeant. Uncle Sean was probably at home, presiding over pot roast and potatoes with Aunt Marine and her two youngest O'Malleys. But inside the station, Kate could hear the thunderous voice of Inspector Duggan, the night sergeant, bawling into the recently installed telephone in a voice loud enough to be heard in Brooklyn. If she were to confront the shadowy figure, she had best to do it here, where a loud scream would summon reinforcements. Kate slipped into the shadows of the stairs and waited, holding her breath, until Bowler had turned the corner. He hesitated, stroking his handlebar mustache as she searched the empty street. Then she stepped out and accosted him with a greater boldness than she felt, speaking in a firm, unfaltering voice. "Please be good enough, sir," she said, lifting her chin, "to tell me why you are following me." Bowler Hat's mustache twitched and his beefy face registered surprise, alarm, and chagrin, in that order. He haunched his shoulders and shifted his feet uncomfortably, his garments exuding the smoky seasoning of cigars and garlic. Then he collected himself, straightened his shoulders, and cleared his throat. "You mistake me, madam," he said with great dignity. "I am not following." "Stuff and nonsense," Kate snapped. She stamped her foot. "Do you take me for a fool? You, sir, have been trailing a half-block behind me since I left Fifth Avenue. What is more, you were following me yesterday, and rather clumsily, I must say. Now, do you wish to tell me why you are being such an annoyance, or do you prefer to yield that information to—" she pointed at the brightly lighted door— "Inspector Duggan?" At that moment, Inspector Duggan was heard to shout into the phone. "Well then, a good night to you too, sir, and to bellow for Corporal Peters. On the double, damn it." His jaw tightening, Bowler Hat's glance darted from Kate to the lighted door and back again. He hesitated, clearly perceiving that he was in a tight place. "As you wish," he said sourly, reaching into the pocket of his tweed coat, producing a leather card case, and handed her a card. "If you'll appear at this address Friday morning at 10, you'll be told what you wish to know." Kate turned the thin grey card to the light. On it was printed in bold letters the name Rodney P. Kellerman, and beneath that, Pinkerton's Detective Agency, New York office, with an address on 2nd Avenue. Kate's eye widened. A private detective? What an amazing good fortune! But she did not allow her delight to creep into her voice. "Pinkerton's?" she asked with cold formality. "And what, pray tell, does Pinkerton's require of me?" But Rodney P. Kellerman did not appear inclined to answer. He touched his finger to the brim of his bowler. "Friday at 10, madam," he said, and marched stiffly around the corner. And then it began to rain.